Sometimes danger lurks outside our homes. And sometimes it's invited in.
He was a killer. He was a mercenary. But he didn't see it coming.
We're in Texas. Everybody stands on the back deck and shoots.
No, it's pretty cool that you shoot out here.
He brought in a known drug user and drug abuser into his home, and then it just kind of became one thing after another. Sooner or later, something bad was going to happen.
In the autumn of 2008, deep in the heart of Texas, a man lies bleeding, shot twice in the back of the head. As the life slowly drains from his body, he has just a few seconds left to figure out how and why it went so horribly wrong. It all starts in Ingram, a rural community in Texas Hill Country, 75 miles northwest of San Antonio, when a stranger rolls into town. 51-year-old retired banker Alan Kowalski first stops to see Mike Anderson, who owns a local auto body shop. Alan's a classic car buff, and his late 60s model Chevy is acting up.
Thought I'd pop in and see an old friend of mine.
Howdy. He's a real nice guy. Real nice guy. At that time, he accumulated 4 or 5 hot rods and was buying more, and he's got into it. It's kind of like you got the bug.
Come on in.
Turns out Al's hunting for a new house in the area. He's spent time here before. Mike offers to put him up temporarily.
I was cool. I had his Yinko Camaro, 68, I believe, or 69, sitting in the shop down there, and he'd go away for all day, he'd come back that afternoon. Well, I looked at some houses today I wasn't too enthused. He'd stay down at the shop, throw a piece of foam on the floor, it'd be freezing cold, he'd wrap up with a couple of cowhide, and that dog would be right underneath there with him. You know?
Good morning.
Good morning.
It doesn't take Al too long to find a more permanent place to stay.
Hey, I think I'm going for a ride today. You in? Take 20 minutes.
Sure.
Something I want to show you. Oh. How'd you like that?
That's all yarn? This is a big house.
Yeah. Think someone could have some nice parties? Barbecues over here?
Parties. Oh, yeah.
So what do you think about this place? It's cooler than hell.
Well then, let's go break her in.
He had the key to the house and a brand new $150 bottle of something or other. I don't know. Wow, you bought that place? Yeah, I bought it. I'm like, oh my God. So we went up there and got in the door and drank that booze and got a little tipsy and just walked around and checked the whole place out. It was beautiful.
4,000 square feet.
4,000.
2.5 acres with water access. Yeah, we're gonna have some good fun up here.
3-story maid's quarters, 4-stall garage, balconies all the way around, fireplaces everywhere. It had a cathedral ceiling about 3 stories high. It's just beautiful, beautiful.
4,000 square feet on 2.5 acres.
It had a big old spiraling staircase that went up from the bottom floor to the 3rd floor, and then the ceiling went on pretty good ways after that. The kitchen had all that modern everything and big old fireplace, and I liked it because it had patios all the way around. Balconies and patios for sightseeing or whatever. You know, it was just a gorgeous house. It was beautifully set up and everything.
Al's new home is massive, remote, and offers incredible views of the surrounding hill country. But that's not what seals the deal for Al Kowalski, an avid hunter.
I think we're gonna have some good times here. Let's have a drink. And this over here is where we're gonna go hunting.
Sounds fine by me.
A neighbor has offered him free access to hundreds of acres of private land.
He talked to him one time. A guy gave him a key. He said, man, just go in there and do everything you want to do. Go hunting, whatever you want to do. And he knew there was a lot of game out there, but that's what he liked to do. That's the game hunter in him.
How'd you get them damn keys so fast then?
The house was listed at more than $500,000, and Al Kowalski buys it outright, with money transferred from offshore accounts.
I was the type of guy who wasn't into paper trails. He'd pay cash for everything, sign the papers, and boom. He didn't come right out and say it, but he had money. He had access to a lot of money.
You know what kind of game's in that?
Al was kind of a ghosty fella. Didn't like talking about where he got his money or what he had or what he knew. Or
Al is not a complete stranger to the area. He has a few friends in and around Ingram.
Wow, howdy there, Michelle.
But even his old friends, Michelle and Gary Mitchell from nearby Banderas, can't quite get a handle on who he is and where he came from.
When I first met Alan, I really didn't like him. He liked drawing attention to himself. He liked being showy. And he was showy with his money, he was showy with his house, But as I got to know him, we did a whole lot of things together. And ultimately, he got into my good graces. As I got to know him, I realized he was a real person. But yeah, initially, I really didn't like him. He seemed very mysterious, very different from, I guess, the people that I knew.
Remember that dream house I've always been telling you about? Well, here we got it.
He was very secretive, didn't diverge a whole lot about himself, standoffish. Just trying to converse with him. You got very short answers, didn't really elaborate a whole lot.
I have no idea how he made his money. He said that he started a group called the Blackstone Group, and that's where he made his money.
This thing here, have you ever seen one of these before?
Well, he said that he had been an investment banker, and he was pretty much retired. I mean, I never saw him actually do any work the whole time I met him.
You shot that? Yeah, I shot that. What did you shoot it with? A 303 shotgun.
Hal spends his early retirement traveling to far-flung destinations in search of big game.
He was very much an exotic hunter. He had a room that was just filled with mounted animals of all types, and he was very proud of them, so he displayed them for everyone to see.
Ex-military, good hunter, he had a lot of guns, had a lot of mounts.
He liked to work on cars, he was showy with his money, he was showy with his house, everything he did top of the line. He was a manly man. He wanted to, to finally settle down, and he wanted to have his man cave. I think it was his dream home.
So you think you're gonna settle down?
Al and his beloved dog Mishuk are soon right at home.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna like settling down here. And I think my little friend Mishuk will like settling down here as well.
His dog was treated pretty much as if she was a person. He would grill her a steak, and he would make sure that she ate with him.
Yeah, good dog, Mishuk.
When he traveled with his animals, with Mishuk.
Oh, shoot, those two were two peas in a pod. They just loved each other.
Steak?
Please.
One month after the move, Al makes fast friends with Charlie Tidwell and his wife Lisa. Charlie's a part-time mechanic from Mike's shop who's just as crazy about classic cars as Al is.
So about the time that Al was moving into his house, Charlie was down there one day. He used to stop in about every other day, and he was down there one day and he was looking at Al's Jinko Camaro down there, and man, that's a beautiful car and all that nice, but the carburetor was all set up wrong. And Al just happened to show up.
So, how's it looking?
It's not looking too bad, but I don't like the way the carburetor's set up.
I thought it was sounding a bit off.
Oh, so you met Charlie, my best mechanic.
Hey, Charlie. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure, Dave.
Gonna be the doctor on my car?
Yeah, we'll have it.
They started talking, so I introduced them to each other, and Charlie was a pretty good mechanic.
Tell you what, I got some other cars back at my place that might need some tending to.
For sure. Like to, as long as Mike doesn't mind. On your own time, be it.
So, what you doing after this shift?
Well, that gets right to the point. I'll come up and see you at your place.
Good man. See you later.
Yes, sir.
Charlie knew how to drive a car pretty good. No hot rodder. He used to work on a lot of hot rod racetrack cars, stuff like that.
Some driving.
Yeah, nice ride.
Speaking of cars, come check this out, my friend.
What you got there?
Have a look at that.
Hey, 2000 Mustang. Nice looking car.
Yeah, that's part of what you're gonna be working on.
And then Charlie saw all the rest of his cars. Next thing you know, Charlie's moving in with him.
Forward to that.
Hey, come on in. Let's go have a beer.
All right, never turn down the beer.
Even though Charlie's married, he accepts Al's offer and happily moves into the mansion.
Dude, this place is killer.
Not a word of a lie there. See these animals?
Yeah.
Saw that one in Africa.
Africa. Well, what about that fella there?
That's a Russian bear.
A Russian bear.
So this here's your room.
Yeah.
Hal has cars that need fixing and money to spare, so he makes a deal.
If you need anything, just give me a call.
Hal will provide room and board if Charlie works as his private mechanic.
Well, he was so busy with his house that he didn't have time to work on the cars. And Alan was really excited because he had so many vehicles, and he had found somebody that could come to him. I think he had, 5 Camaros and 2 Mustangs and a Vet, a couple Jeeps, a couple trucks.
Charlie knowing about mechanics and Al wanting to fix his cars, getting them running right. I thought it was a good combination.
But it's a combination that will prove explosive.
You know, I always thought that the cars were a front for laundering money somehow. What I really thought was Charlie Manson. He just looked kind of scary, and he just had some strange eyes.
Al Kowalski has found his dream home, but it's too big for one person. He needs a full-time mechanic to tend to his classic car collection, and Charlie Tidwell needs a place to stay. It's an ideal arrangement. And the two men don't just work together, they play together.
Let's go have us some fun.
They just become buddies. You know, it's a camaraderie thing.
You know, he was the hot shot. He was just, you know, what's mine is yours when it came to, you know, to wanting to hang out and party with the guys.
Al plays the generous host, but he doesn't give much away about his past.
No, it's pretty cool that you shoot out here.
Yeah. Hey, let me show you something. Check this out.
What's that?
Bullet grazed me when I was in Detroit.
What were you hunting?
That's what was hunting me.
He says he was shot. I saw a spot on the back of the leg, but it didn't appear to be a gunshot wound to me.
He could come up with some great stories. He did show me his leg where a bullet appeared to have grazed him.
I wasn't a big Al fan. I couldn't substantiate anything he told me. He was full of himself and full of it.
But it's not all cars and hunting. Charlie has work to do.
Charlie Tidwell, I met him once, and I just heard stories of him. He was on hard times.
Scraggly, you know, had a shadow, you know, kind of stringy hair. Almost kind of like a homeless-looking man. He didn't make you feel comfortable.
What I really thought was Charlie Manson. He just looked peculiar. He just looked kind of scary, and he just had some strange eyes.
They're also unimpressed by Charlie's wife, Lisa, who's spending less time in the home she used to share with Charlie, and more time at Al's.
I did warn him, you know, I'm your friend, and I appreciate everything that you do for me, but these are people you don't know. I guess because he so wanted to fit in and wanted to be liked, that, you know, that he did open himself up to it, to somebody, you know, to come in and take him for granted.
Now, I introduce you to Charlie and Lisa.
We saw them on the way up.
Yeah?
He was very insecure. I think he befriended people that he felt that were lesser than him, so that they would look up to him as being very important. I thought he was likely to be robbed, you know, or taken for granted. He would just shrug it off. Oh, I can take care of myself.
But Michelle knows that tough guy Al has struggled with one major weakness: recreational drug use.
You're not back to your old habits again, are you?
Jeez, Michelle. Why would you bring that up?
All along, you know, he said he wasn't doing drugs. I had asked him, initially because of his sleeping patterns. You know, I always kind of wondered, but he just said, you know, that he liked being up at night and rather sleep during the day.
Michelle has been concerned about Al ever since he broke up with his long-term girlfriend, Pam.
Pam definitely made Al happy. He loved being around her. She was bubbly. She was fun to be around. You know, anything he asked, she would do for him. Maybe thought that there was still a chance that they could have something. Because even after, when he was in his new home, he had her pictures sitting around.
But Al never seems to lack for female company.
You know, he'd come showing up with a model one time, and next time I just got back from Fort Worth, I met this stewardess, you know, and I'm like, what in the world? And next week he got another girl. Like, what?
He was a charmer for the girls, and the girls just loved all of his BS, I guess.
Even though Al is clean and relatively sober, Al's new roommate has a habit he can't seem to shake. And thanks to his addiction to crystal meth, Charlie's in a bit of legal trouble.
Well, Charlie was on probation. So when you're on probation, you know, you've got a lot of big lists of things you're not supposed to do. You know, you're not supposed to use alcohol, not supposed to use any drugs, not hang around with people or, you know, disreputable character, this type of stuff.
Charlie's original charge was meth possession. While on probation, he dropped out of rehab and tested positive for meth use.
Oh,
How are you, my friend?
good to see you, old Charlie. There's someone I'd like you to meet.
Hello, Charlie.
So Al makes a call to his trusted attorney, Bob Galvan.
Bob here is going to be your new attorney. He's going to keep you out of jail so you can keep working on my cars.
Now, Al tells me here we got a few things to fix. You want to tell me what we all got to fix?
Well, Al knows I got a little history that needs taken care of.
Well, you all know I can fix a lot of history.
I'm glad to hear hear that.
Charlie Tidwell seemed like a very nice, soft-spoken, nice guy. And our arrangement was that I was going to help Charlie out. Al was going to pay the fee. In Charlie's instance, we had an instance where they wanted to search his trailer, things like that, and they felt like they might have some drug in his trailer or something, along those lines. So, I'm dealing with instances like that. And that's what I was doing. Pretty much, you could say, running interference for the guy. Keep him out of prison. Yeah.
For Al, Charlie's mechanical genius makes up for his personal peccadillos.
Al lauded him. I mean, he just raved on Charlie's mechanical ability. I mean, to prove his point, that's when he took me down to show me his cars, show me the engines, and give me a ride in that Camaro. We burned rubber for, 50 feet, a lot of dust kicking up, squealing the tires, fishtailing down 39, about 140 miles an hour. Hadn't had a ride like that since I rode in a friend's GTO in the 60s.
Well, Charlie, you sure know how to put a motor together. I'm having a few motor problems myself.
All right. The SUV?
Yeah, the SUV. Maybe we can put that in the deal altogether.
Sounds all right with me. How about you, Charlie?
Well, for sure. We'll be happy to help out.
Started out being a very good client. No problems. That would be my first impressions of Charlie.
That is a nice car.
It is something, isn't it?
6 months after Al buys the house, the entire place has been decorated in his distinctive style.
Nice house. Bachelor's place, obviously. Had his electronics, had all that laid out. Sportsman, guy, animal heads, guns, arrowheads.
He had moose head and all kind of exotic game. I don't know what you call half these animals come from Africa, but cypress stumps that looked like it come out of Louisiana, all chopped up and glazed over. It looked like it was just a table. But it was gorgeous, beautiful. I'm talking about a piece that looked like it was worth about $5,000. He just loved the outdoors, and he just loved all his fancy stuff.
I thought it was a beautiful home. I could see him there. He was very proud of it.
But then, next thing I know, I hear all kinds of funny stories about some riffraff coming and hanging out, and I believe that's when the trouble started.
Just as millionaire Al Kowalski is settling into his dream home, something sinister begins to brew. Al's new housemate Charlie has a meth problem, and a wife who's spending more and more time at the house. Both are known to police.
I was aware of Charles Tidwell because we had worked cases involving him in the past, and I was aware of his wife, Lisa Rossi, and her family because I had worked cases involving them in the past.
Lisa Rossi, she was a piece of work. I think she was just about as bad as Charlie, okay?
Lisa was described to me by the people who knew her as someone who was highly volatile and, their words, crazy.
I told you to clean this mess up, for crying out loud.
What? We're just having a good time.
Hey, that ain't public property, no?
Well, what's mine is yours.
They just made themselves at home way too fast.
I might just told you that.
And obviously he had quite a bit more money than they did.
He would get monthly checks that were, 5 figures.
Normally, a guy like Al, where he was in life, probably would not be hanging around with Charlie Tidwell and his group. I felt like he was lonely for, friendships with people, more like himself, more situated, socioeconomically like himself.
Al does search for a more suitable date.
Howdy. My name's Al Kowalski. So, I'm intelligent, I'm masculine, I'm sensitive, I'm non-traditional by choice.
He signed up for a dating service in San Antonio.
His house is remote, so it's not a place you can walk out the door and walk over to the coffee shop. He wanted to meet people here, wanted to meet women.
And I've been convicted for a poaching offense.
He was probably getting tired of going through girlfriends.
I'm an alpha male, and I don't want any drama. No girls with piercings.
He was pretty macho.
And, I got stab wounds, and I got shot. So, what you doing later on tonight?
But friends suspect that Al's new house guests offer more than car maintenance and polite conversation.
I walked in and I saw Charlie's wife. I mean, she walked around like she owned the place. I mean, that was like maybe a month and a half after they had met. It was much more chummier with Al in such a short period of time.
She was a hellraiser. You bet. As far as I know from what I hear, you know, their sleeping arrangements were kind of mixed up between Charlie and Al and her.
As the summer wears on, neighbors notice more traffic up the usually quiet country road.
It was kind of strange. It looked like a 7-Eleven store there, and that was all hours of day and night. So I don't know what was going on back there. Loud, roaring engines, even 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
The neighbors swap stories. One is greeted by Al wielding a gun.
People were coming and going, and they thought that was strange.
It was a party house. Probably friends of Charlie's to begin with, and then Al got to know him, and then probably these others, you know, may have come in and, you know, had some bad ideas.
Things just get a little too out of hand.
The noise gets so bad that Al's neighbor cuts off his access to the adjoining land, but nobody calls the police.
We're in Texas. Everybody stands on the back deck and shoots.
The chaos at his own personal retirement home seems to be taking a toll on Al's mental state.
He took medications for depression. He visited a psychiatrist at the Veterans Hospital.
I don't know if he was bipolar or had some schizophrenic tendencies or stuff. I know he's on medication. I could tell he was kind of edgy that way.
Al starts relying on prescription pills just to get by. In fact, Al's taking 5 different types of prescription medication to deal with depression and bipolar disorder. But some of his friends fear Al might be self-medicating in a different way.
Give that to me. Where's Al?
Hey.
Where is Al?
Al is...
All along, you know, he said he wasn't doing drugs. The last straw for me was being at his house. I was in his kitchen and I saw a plate of some white powder with a razor blade and a straw.
Get out of his house!
I knew it was meth, you know, and only because of my dealings with a family member that had a problem with it.
Michelle isn't the only one who doesn't like the drugs. Turns out one of Al's ex-girlfriends reacted badly to finding meth stashed under her bed.
Why are you doing this again? Nicole had actually thrown him out for the same reasons that she had found meth in his possession.
I've been associated. I've seen speed freaks. I've seen people addicted to cocaine and, you know, heroin, whatever. You can tell.
Why are all these drug addicts in your house?
It's just a party, Michelle. Just having fun.
Having fun with meth, and they've been here for a month.
Listen, it's their stuff. They're gonna take it out when they leave. Oh, chill out.
And I think Al didn't mind dabbling in this stuff a little bit once in a while. I don't think he did it all the time.
I saw Alan changing. He was very uppity, very on edge, and I didn't like it.
It's Michelle.
Michelle is worried enough to call one of Al's friends back in Pennsylvania.
No, it's as bad as last time.
I did call a childhood friend of his to speak to him and tell him of my concerns, of my worry about who he was hanging out with, mainly Charlie, and of what I'd seen, what I'd found. And from what I understand, he denied it all. I definitely believe it's possible that he was doing it prior to meeting Charlie. I just think Charlie was the gateway to it in this area. I knew I couldn't trust him anymore.
In the spring of 2008, Michelle's 66 Mustang, a car she bought from Al, suddenly disappears.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Just strip them over here, right?
Okay, right?
Okay. And then you just... Ready?
Yeah.
Put them together like that.
It was parked in my driveway, and it disappeared. So my speculation was that, you know, that Alan came and stole it and that Charlie helped him do it.
Whether it was to sell it or it was just for kicks, Michelle isn't sure.
My heart was broken. I mean, for one, you know, like I said, I did so much for him. You know, I was the only one there for him when nobody else was there.
I just figured typical Ellen.
With Al's behavior becoming more impulsive, his friends are getting worried.
Gary, where's my car?
I mean, as much as I wanted to report it, we were pretty much kind of afraid of him. We were afraid of what he might do, the repercussions of what he might do.
Attorney Bob Galvan is also getting worried for a different reason.
Charlie was supposed to be, you know, working on my car, which he never did. So he never put any work into it.
Bob could only do so much to keep his client out of trouble. Charlie is not playing ball.
At the beginning, he was always answering my phone calls. You know, he would show up, and I asked him to show up.
Not anymore.
I think maybe we had a court date, and he didn't show up.
Hey, we got to talk about something. Come on.
Charlie violates the terms of his parole again, and now has a warrant out for his arrest.
You know, something happened. Somebody's seen him at a bar. You know, somebody's seen him somewhere with drugs.
I got a report back, and Charlie's urine is dirty. Again. Now just stay cool, stay cool. We're going to get this settled.
I put my reputation on the line. I'm going to have to throw him out of here now.
You're representing someone, got a meth problem. I figured he'd been off, you know, doing meth, and he just went crazy.
As the Kowalski house teeters on the edge of chaos, drugs, hard liquor, and a rack full of guns will tip it over into tragedy.
He was a killer. He was a mercenary.
It never occurred to me that there had been foul play.
Al Kowalski, millionaire, rumored mercenary, and suspected trained killer, is being pushed to the edge by his meth-addicted housemate, Charlie Tidwell. And Charlie is about to take his addiction to a new level. Soon, Al's neighbors catch a whiff of a strange chemical in the wind.
I'm an ex-police officer myself. I know that acetone is used in the production of methamphetamine, so I did catch the smell, and I was pretty sure that's what that was.
You know, it wasn't Al. Al didn't need the money. But Charlie and his buddies, once they get started messing around with that stuff, hey, we're going to cook this stuff up and sell it and make some money.
Then, as if the party wasn't already out of control, Charlie and his friends get the run of the house. Al has had enough.
He would disappear at times, and the stories were that he was some kind of black ops or working for the federal government and had a briefcase ready to go at any time.
Al was definitely prone to mysterious disappearances. You know, he would be here one day and then he'd be jetting off somewhere.
There was always something strange going on with Al Kowalski.
Hey, Mike, you seen Al? He ain't been around for a while.
Well, no, I mean, he's in Africa. He went to South Africa. He went to a safari in South Africa.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, good night.
I'll see you later.
Yeah.
While Al's away, Charlie and Lisa bring home two recently released felons, both believed to be part of a white supremacist gang.
Typical drug user, typical gang members, you know, tattoos all over. People may laugh, but they get kind of that wild look in their eye. They're drug abusers.
What do you all think you're doing? What do you think you're doing? You think you can just come over here? Shut up, will you? You just come over here and do whatever you want?
They're members of the Aryan Circle, and they're, you know, they threw their weight around.
It got to be a pretty good party house.
They party hard and pillage the house.
The owner's not around. We can take this and go sell it.
They started giving us furniture. You need a washer and dryer? Okay, there you go. Here, you need some furniture? There you go.
It looked like they had just ascended on that house and were preying on it.
It kind of took on a life of its own. You know, people just started taking stuff and stealing stuff.
So they used his own trucks to transport his couches, beds, furniture, guns, and any other property they could get out of that house.
And 1, 2.
That's a kind of a den of thieves, you might say, and that's where it goes from.
3 and done.
I just thought, you know, the poop's going to hit the fan when Al gets back. My vehicle was the only one left after all these other cars were sold off. And I guess I should be glad for that, but I'm sure the reason is because it didn't run.
But it's not drugs or stolen cars that brings the cops to Al's house. It's a routine traffic stop on October 22nd, 2008.
When my officer stopped him, he identified himself as Al Kowalski.
How you say? Your license? I don't have a license.
And he presented appropriate identification for Al Kowalski. At that time, he had Mr. Kowalski's birth certificate with him. He had credit cards in Mr. Kowalski's name with him. He's driving Mr. Kowalski's vehicle, so he gave every appearance that he was really Mr. Kowalski.
Well, I'm looking for somebody, and I think you're the guy I'll be looking for. What's your name?
It's Charlie Tidwell, and he does not fool the police officer for very long.
Mr. Tidwell had taken Mr. Kowalski's military ID and cut out the picture on the military ID and put his own photograph in there and then relaminated it.
It was really bad. The military ID looked like, it looked just like what it is. That someone took a knife, an X-Acto knife, and cut his picture out and then stuck Charlie's picture in there.
The cop also recognizes Charlie's Chevrolet tattoo.
Charlie Tidwell had been in and out of our facility several times. You know, he's a fugitive because he hadn't had an outstanding warrant.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pushing around to that. Well, let me get my...
So at that point, he was arrested for failure to ID and for the outstanding warrant.
Fingerprints confirmed Charlie's identity, even though he had grown facial hair in an attempt to pass for Al.
Al always had a mustache. I think Charlie grew that to confuse the officers if they stopped him. They were looking for maybe a clean-shaven person. He's got a beard with gray in it. It was just a ploy. It didn't work. Not for long.
You initially told me that Al went to Africa. That's what I was going to South Africa. But then you dropped him off.
Up to this point, Al's friends and even his attorney have assumed that his disappearance is nothing to worry about. They couldn't be more wrong.
Okay, this is Al. Leave your name and number. I'll call you back.
I started calling Al, and I couldn't get hold of Al. And I called him for 2 weeks, and I just presumed that Al was, out of the country. It never occurred to me that there had been foul play.
But it does occur to the cops interrogating Charlie.
We're worried about him. I'm worried about him, too. Now I don't have any kids out.
Now we're trying to locate the true owner of the identification and the credit cards, being Alan Kowalski. Has anybody heard from Al Kowalski? Has anybody seen him? Has anybody had any kind of contacts with him? Has his cell phone, got phone calls or anything?
Charlie sticks to his story. Al is in Africa.
I haven't heard from him. I haven't heard that man. Promise you that, man.
Nobody had seen or heard from Al Kowalski in quite a while.
Most alarming, Al's beloved black lab, Mishuk, is still in the house.
When he traveled with Mishuk. And, she was the love of, I would almost say the love of his life.
Oh, wait a minute, that's not like Al, to leave a dog, somebody they don't know that well. It is kind of, wow, that's kind of different.
It's been 8 weeks since anyone's heard from Al. In October 2008, police visit the Kowalski house. The once pristine residence is unrecognizable.
A lot of the cars gone, trash all over the kitchen, trash on the floor, gun cabinet was empty. The house was definitely trashed.
He had a lot of animal mounts that were missing. The beds in the bedroom were missing. Televisions, basic furniture that you would have in a home like that was missing. A lot of times when people use injectable drugs, they will draw back a syringe and squirt part of the contents out, and normally, if you've ever been to a drug house, you'll see it squirted on the wall.
So far, the cops have a ransacked house, evidence of petty theft, but that's about it. Was this just Texas bad boys being Texas bad boys, or was there something more sinister going on at Al's dream home? Mysterious millionaire Al Kowalski is missing, and his meth-addicted mechanic Charlie Tidwell is in custody after he pulls out Al's ID during a routine traffic stop. The cops find Al's house turned into a meth den and ransacked. Now the most pressing question, where is Al?
One of those key things that told us something definitely was wrong here was a lot of Al's clothing, personal things, his photo albums from African safari hunts, were all in trash bags.
That was pretty telling at that point. You just don't leave behind everything.
Their suspicions are raised a notch when they discover someone's been shooting up more than meth.
We found one bullet casing in the bedroom and a large amount of them outside the back door.
So we felt pretty sure then that we probably had a murder, but where was the body?
There's one good way to find a body buried in a backyard.
We brought the dog in. He was great. They ran him around the yard, and within minutes he sat down and hit on the spot.
We did pull up some of that flagstone, and then we discovered Mr. Kowalski's body buried within a foot of the surface. And could see some of the bones and some of the skeletal remains sticking out from underneath the flagstone once you moved it up.
I got the call that day, and we found Al's body right behind the house. Hey, come on, man. What's up with that? 5 steps off the back porch. That's real creative. That's being careful.
With the discovery of Al's remains, Charlie's charged with murder.
Once we discovered the body, I returned to the jail. I brought Charles back to an interview room, explained the situation to him, told him, we got you, basically. You need to tell us what happened.
And we know a whole lot, okay? What I want you to do right now is to really tell us the truth about what happened. Charlie, listen to me.
Charlie actually told our sheriff that these 2 men had killed Mr. Kowalski, Jeremiah McGregor and Wayne Christensen. We were able to determine that didn't happen because they were in prison. They were actually locked up when the murder took place.
After several interviews over the span of more than a week, Charlie admits to killing Al himself, but says it was out of self-defense.
He said they had gotten into an argument, that Alan wanted him to become involved in some money laundering, and he didn't want to be involved in that. So they got into an argument.
He hit me. Nothing else. Sure.
And that's enough. You're gonna do what I tell you.
Produced a weapon. They struggled over it. He took it away.
You got the gun. You're shooting. I think so. The rest of the gun got it away from me. I turned to go out the door with it. I was just like that.
And as he was running out a door, fired some shots and hit him. And I confronted him. That's not likely. This is not the Matrix. You don't sling bullets behind your head and hit someone. At that point, he confessed to me that he shot him.
The police now know that Charlie shot Al. While they consider Charlie's version of events, they want to know about how he and Al went from best friends to mortal enemies. Everybody's got a theory.
My suspicion is a drug deal gone bad.
He probably got tired of it. Yeah, the more and more riffraff starts showing up, and it's like self-implosion, just,
Charlie.
Bad deal going worse.
What the hell's going on here?
I can't say he was ever doing meth. He kept company with a lot of people that were.
Just making last batch. Gotta make some money.
Go and burn the house down. Get me arrested. That's it, Charlie. You're out of here.
And I think he allowed some of these people into his home, and then there was an argument that ensued one night.
Charles had a prior arrest for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He had shot at another man in the past who he believed was having an affair with Lisa. It was never substantiated that Alan and Lisa were having an affair, but it certainly is a plausible explanation for the death.
I think that maybe Al was about ready to kick him out. And I think, Charlie saw that was going to happen and unfortunately thought that he wasn't going to leave.
Put the gun down.
And found a way to stay.
Things got out of hand, and that's when Mr. Tidwell, Charlie, ended up shooting Mr. Kowalski twice in the back of the head.
You made me do it.
To the police, it appears Charlie and his alleged accomplices made a failed attempt to dissolve the body using store-bought chemicals.
We found where they purchased some Red X, which is normally a septic tank treatment deal, which kind of like lye. They had poured the Red X, they had poured bleach, they had done all kinds of things to the body to get it to decompose quicker so that the odor and the rest of it wouldn't be obvious to anybody walking around it. And then it's, kind of a free-for-all. They need money for their meth and need money for this, and, they sold a lot of good stuff and just sold it for whatever, just to get their drug money and go out and have fun and party for several months before it all came to an end.
Some of them stole items out of the home. Some of them sold items out of the home. Some of them benefited from a check that was forged and cashed at their bank.
In total, 12 people are implicated in the theft ring, including Charlie's wife Lisa, who's sentenced to 10 years for organized crime, along with Jeremiah McGregor, who also gets 10 years, and Wayne Christensen, who's sentenced to 20.
There were a lot of prison sentences given out of this and never bring Al back, but I think we tried the best we could to get justice for it.
In 2010, Charlie Tidwell's sentenced to 45 years for the murder of Al Kowalski.
We did end up finally getting confessions from Charlie where he took the blame for being the one to totally pull the trigger.
He obviously got convicted, but we still don't know the entire story. He could be protecting Lisa.
There wasn't any doubt Lisa had helped clean up some of the blood.
Al's dream home is cleaned up and sold. Most of Al's cars are recovered, including Michelle's Mustang. Al's dog is found alive and well.
She's on a beautiful ranch, has a lot of room to run, and I'm sure she's very happy.
While Al will be dearly missed.
It was really sad, to tell you the truth. I was a nice guy. Yeah, didn't deserve that.
He was one of those guys that, you know, when he enjoyed life, he enjoyed it fully. And he took care of the people around him that he cared about. So, yeah, I do miss him. Nobody ever deserves to be killed. I was upset, and I cried. It was difficult.
It just made me sick. Made me sicker than a dog. I couldn't believe it.